Let's call in now our good friend from the left, Skyping in from Madison, Wisconsin, Josh Orton, the senior advisor at Progressives United. Josh, your resume also lists you as a former aide to Harry Reid. What do you make of this? Was the Senate Majority Leader in the person of Harry Reid responsible for a fair amount of obstructionism in the Senate?
Well, I think what you've seen from the last 2 years leading up to the 2014 election was a GOP that really did not want to compromise and get anything done. And if I have any criticism, it might be of President Obama for holding out so long, thinking that he might bring some reasonable Senate Republicans to the table, which of course never happened because I'm not sure there are that many.
Well,
so
that's very interesting, Josh.
Because
you're operating with apologies to the pop psychology book of the 70s, you seem to be saying, we're okay, you're not. And well, let's face it, institutionally, the Senate Majority Leader, whether Republican or Democrat, controls the schedule in the Senate. And not even hearing amendments on these bills, much less not bringing up some of the bills that pass through the House, that's scarcely, even if you have a totally different opinion, to expose the problems there. Shouldn't the Senate be the place for debate and legislation and amendments? And why didn't your former boss do that?
Well, that's interesting. I think that what's sort of illustrative is what we saw when Ted Cruz tried to shut down the government for the sake of trying to ostensibly repeal Obamacare. And what you saw from some of the Republican caucus was extreme frustration that Ted Cruz, on the whole, did not care about getting any legislation done. He was in doing what is called message bills. He was trying to pass message amendments, and I think that's sort of the lesson for the Republican caucus as a whole. They were trying to pass amendments. The amendments that they were so angry at Harry Reid for not considering were not real legislative vehicles. They were vehicles that they wanted to use to message to their email lists of activists, to raise money, to sort of put on a theatrical show ahead of a midterm election. And I think that when you look at what Ted Cruz did, I think it's absolutely an example of what the larger caucus, their attitude in the last Congress. It was not about legislating, it was about getting themselves on TV and raising money.
I gotta just ask you this, Josh. You brand the filibuster, a time-honored tradition in the Senate that your former boss in a previous Congress defended when he was in the minority. Now you castigate it as sheer theatrics. Now, since the Democrats adopted the so-called nuclear option, basically curtailing the filibuster, are you going to see your former boss and the Democrats try to bring it back? Or do you think the Republicans are institutionalist enough to restore and show courtesy to the Democrats that they were disallowed in this most recent Congress?
Well, if the Republicans do that, JD, pizza's on me. But I think we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about, on one hand, we're talking about the sort of legislative theatrics that Ted Cruz and the Republican caucus were engaged in. And on the other hand, we're talking about the Reid rule that dealt specifically with executive nominations. And I think that, one of the absolutely ridiculous political theatrics of the Republican Party extended all the way to politicizing even the most non-controversial nominations, when we saw even the nominees that were basic to the most foundational operations of government obstructed. That's, I think, when Harry Reid finally decided that something had to change, because fundamentally Republicans were preventing the government from working on a very basic level. I think that's very different from the type of ridiculousness we saw from Ted Cruz.
I very much appreciate your insights, Josh. We don't agree on much, but it's interesting from time to try to view the world through leftist eyes, and you offer us that glimpse, and we look forward to having you back. We'll see what happens in the next Congress, and of course we'll have Josh Orton back with us real soon here on America's Forum. Stay with us.